suspect you not intruding with malicious intent. Stop.
Imagine for a moment you're playing early Minecraft. It's 2011 and version beta 1.5 has just been released. You're eager to try out this new Minecraft version, explore a new world, and see all the new features implemented in this update. So you turn on your computer, download the new update, and press login. The title screen loads up, you click single player and generate a new world. As you're exploring this brand new world, dreaming up the perfect base, scouting the terrain for the best location, you notice something's off. In the distance, you can make out pitch black blocks. They stand out from anything around them. You think maybe it's a bug, so you get closer, and now you can make out a white outline around this dark block. A new feature, maybe? You walk right up to the blocks, inspecting them, seeing if they do anything at all, and suddenly,
You aren't in your world anymore.
all around you, everywhere you look, you're surrounded by these black and white blocks. The terrain itself is entirely made up of them. As you walk through the world, you notice something flying through the air. A player. And just as you see them, a new chat message appears. Hello everyone, and welcome to the first installment of a new series called Digital Distress, where I'll be discussing disturbing and unsettling media I've found online. Today, we'll be uncovering a widely unknown series of videos about a version of Minecraft that's never existed. From complete corruption, to mysterious entities, and even timeline alterations, we'll be dissecting 9 videos from a channel called TheNick56. Like I mentioned, this channel is pretty unknown, so we've got a lot of analyzing and theorizing to get to. So let's dive in and see if we can figure out what's happening to Nick. The first video uploaded to Nick's channel on January 6th, 2023 is titled Trying the New Minecraft Update Beta 1.5. From the title alone, we can deduce that this video was recorded on April 19th, 2011, as Beta 1.5 had just been released. The video shows Nick creating and exploring a new world inside the Beta 1.5 update, and though it seems fairly innocuous at first, we do get some foreshadowing of a significant event later on. At the 5-minute mark in this initial video, we see Nick suddenly freeze, staring at a frozen beach for a few seconds before heading down a hillside and creating a small base near this exact frozen lake. Keep this spot in mind, as it'll become very important for future uploads. This sudden pause is explained by Nick in the description of the video. Sorry about the pause in the middle, the batteries in my mouse died. As previously stated, this video is very mundane. Not much else happens throughout its runtime. In the comments, however, we see the first of many cryptic replies given to viewers of Nick's channel. In response to user taken, Nick leaves 2 console commands: console.//manifest and console.//logout. So far, this channel and video seems like the usual playthrough of Minecraft, so why would Nick leave such a weird response? Of course, we don't know the answer to this, but it does make us question who is behind this channel. Simply put, is Nick really the one uploading these videos? Moving on, the next upload, titled Making Progress, shows Nick continuing his world from the previous video. We can piece together that a day has passed since the last upload, as the version number on the top left now reads beta 1.5_01, meaning the date is now April 20th. We watch Nick play normally, similar to his last video, though this time, there are more slight strange occurrences, the most obvious of which is the disappearance of Nick's crafting table. Calling back to Nick's last video, we can clearly see him craft, place, and use a workbench, but now, it's seemingly vanished. Confused, Nick crafts a workbench once again, even getting the workbenching achievement for doing so, as if it had never happened before. Now this isn't something groundbreaking, of course. It can easily be explained as a glitch, which is exactly what Nick does in the description, saying, "Apparently I've never used a crafting table before." While it's a small interruption, it does show us the first case of the game breaking down, something we'll see more of very soon. Speaking of, remember that piece of land Nick froze on earlier? We can see that exact same frozen lake just out of the corner of the chest GUI at the 1 minute 19 second mark. But this time, there's something different about it. At the edge of the ice, we can see what appear to be solid black blocks scattered on top of the lake. Something is definitely off here. Luckily for us, we get a much closer look in the next video. Things are about to take a turn for our friend Nick here. In the video titled Burgeon, we see Nick playing in his usual world, though this time, we're watching through a minimized window. This gives us a clear look at Nick's desktop. Now, there isn't much to note about the desktop itself. It's pretty much what you'd expect from 2011. What is important though, is that we have the first real confirmation of the time and date, which we can see on Nick's taskbar, April 24th, 2011. On to the game itself. The video begins with Nick making his way back to his base in the middle of the night. The version of Minecraft hasn't changed. Everything plays out normally, except for the audio cutting out right when Nick reaches his front door. Nick fends off his base from mobs, heads inside, and collects himself before sleeping for the night. When he wakes up, he pans the camera along his house, and he finally sees those black blocks. In the same place his mouse died in episode 1, and right where they started in episode 2. Unlike what we saw in Making Progress, those corrupted blocks have now grown. They cover almost the entire edge of the lake. This matches the video's title. The word burgeon means to grow and increase rapidly, to flourish. Nick heads out the door towards these blocks, and when he reaches them, we can make out a bit more detail. While they are still solid black in the center, these blocks have a white outline covering every edge of the cube. We watch as Nick checks the blocks for any function, clearly just as confused as we are. The video then ends. Hold on. In that second flash of static, there was something written. If we go back and pause the video, we can see a jumble of letters and numbers accompanied by the word hours. Taking that string of numbers and letters, we can plug them into a YouTube URL, which leads to an unlisted video on Nick's channel. This video is titled Hours, and the description reads the same. For now, we can only assume that we're watching from Nick's point of view. The video is silent for a few seconds before we hear distorted groaning and Morse code that repeats the letters O-U-R-S over and over throughout the length of the video. As Nick aimlessly walks through this corrupted world, we get to see several oddities. First, the version in the top left now reads unknown, and if we take a look at the landscape, we can see that the trees made up of the corrupted blocks have long, drooping leaves, and are often abnormally shaped. Within the first 15 seconds, if we slow down the video, we can see a player flying just above Nick. He's not alone in here. Eventually, Nick stumbles upon another player whose skin, just like the surrounding area, is black with a white outline. This player's username is Hours, and they aren't the last player we see. Scattered throughout the terrain, we see more and more of these players, all with the same skin, all with the same name, Hours. They stand unmoving, not acknowledging Nick's presence, even when he tries to interact with them. Further on, we get to see the first real person besides Nick in this series. As Nick walks, a username pops up in chat, Vil_1, and though he seems to be talking directly to Nick, Nick can't or won't respond, not even pausing for a moment to assess the situation. The following is what Vil types in chat.
Impossible. Why you? It took the others, but not you. Why? Forget this all. It must not know of this. A second chance.
We've now got a little more context regarding this world, and a lot more questions. From Vil's chat, we can piece together that there's a bigger force out there that seemingly controls this corruption, referred to as It. It took the others, which we can assume to be the Hours players Nick saw around the world. Clearly, this force wasn't powerful enough, or for some reason, just couldn't corrupt Nick or Vil, leaving them to be the only sentient beings in this dimension. Vil acknowledges that, stating it must not know of this, and even calling Nick lucky to have a second chance, something that doesn't happen often, if at all. While Vil doesn't seem to be a threat, we do have to question his true intentions. Was he also a victim of this corruption that happened to stay under It's radar? Or is he in some way connected to It? As Vil's final message fades, we again cut to static. This time, the words in the static read, "Failure. Return." The sound of a VHS tape being played can be heard before an ominous song plays for just a few seconds, right before the video ends abruptly. One final thing to note about this video is the inclusion of another cryptic console command in the comments. In reply to user Highlander Steve, someone who was really helpful with gathering info on this channel by the way, Nick again replies with a strange console command, this time reading, console.// still observing, still noting. This reply was the first time Nick had been active on his channel in 2 months, still leaving us with more questions than answers though. To me, this response is starting to solidify my theory of Nick not really being the one uploading these videos, at least not anymore. Okay, let's take a moment to discuss what we just witnessed. What started out as a few blocks in a frozen lake quickly led into the most significant part of this story so far. What strikes me as the most odd thing about this video isn't necessarily the corrupted world itself, but rather Nick's reaction to it. If you and I were to experience something like this, being summoned to a world made up of black and white blocks, finding immobile players all over the terrain, and especially having another person talking in chat in what was once a single-player world, I personally don't think I would have been as calm as Nick appeared. In the video, we do see Nick slightly interact with the world. He tries breaking the ground and seems to notice and interact with one of the Hours players, but when it comes to Vil speaking, Nick doesn't react at all. I mentioned before, Nick doesn't even pause for a moment to process anything around him. He just continues walking. I guess it's fair to say we all handle situations differently, but in this case, if Nick is truly seeing what we, the viewers, are seeing, I just really feel like there would have been more of a visible reaction in Nick's behavior. Regardless, we can all agree that something sinister is forming around Nick. And this continues into the next upload, where Nick starts to receive personal threats from It. The video watching./ again shows Nick's desktop, and it's the primary focus of the upload. In classic YouTube style, Nick opens up the notepad and uses it to communicate directly to the audience. He begins by asking, "Has anyone ever gotten this error before?" Then pulls his Minecraft launcher into view. This window appears like the typical Minecraft crash report, though it reads much more like a ban notice. The first line of this report begins with "access denied," and goes on to explain that because there is an action item in Nick's Mojang account, Nick is unable to access any Mojang services. The action item in question here is defined as suspicion of intrusion with malicious intent. Nick is given 2 options in the report. He can either create an entirely new Mojang account, or He can type download in an allotted space below the report to obtain a new launcher, cleanse his account's history, and start fresh. The report then ends with a threat.
Due to the infraction on your account, we will be watching you closely.
This is quite the reaction from Mojang for something Nick never intended to do. Suspicion of intrusion with malicious intent? Sounds like it finally found out what happened in the Hours video. Nick pulls up his notepad again and explains that he can't find anything on the Minecraft forums about this error, nor can he get a direct response from Mojang. He then says that this issue has persisted since the 24th, when his game crashed. We know that Nick is referring to the Burgeon video, as that took place on the 24th of April, just 5 days before this current video. Interestingly though, Nick refers to this incident as a crash, and from what we know, what happened to Nick was a lot more than just a simple game crash. This one sentence alone could lead us to several possibilities on the entire story so far. It's possible that the Burgeon video doesn't directly lead into Hours, and we've been viewing these two videos in the wrong chronological order. This could mean that at the end of Burgeon, Nick's game really did just crash, leaving us with Nick's retelling of events here in his notepad. It's also possible that Nick is just underselling what he experienced in Hours, chalking it all up to be an error. But that's really hard to believe, especially knowing that another player was speaking directly to Nick. There are so many conclusions you could draw from this sentence, and believe me, I've spent a lot of time kicking around my own ideas on how Nick could see what happened as a crash. For now though, we'll have to just keep theorizing, as nothing more has been confirmed by Nick, at least so far. Back to the video, Nick of course decides to download this new launcher. After typing download in the allotted space, the report then generates a new line of text. This text being the first console command we've seen outside of the comments, reading console:// the cleansing has begun. The launcher then suddenly closes, leaving behind a new folder on Nick's desktop, labeled Minecraft Beta 1.5_03 launcher. This is the first version of Minecraft we've seen in Nick's videos that has never existed in real life. The Minecraft development timeline is beginning to fall apart. Inside this folder we see two files. One is the .jar file used for the game itself, and the other is a text document named README. This text document reads as follows. If you are reading this, your account has been cleansed. Remember that we are watching. Any attempt to decompile this jar will result in an IP address ban against your account. Please be warned. Have fun and happy crafting, TheNick56. This note mentions Nick by name, implying that this launcher might be specifically made for Nick, though you could argue that this was just an automated response. With nothing more to do than to launch the game, Nick goes to exit out of the README file. But just as he does, another wave of static covers the screen. Inside the static, we see the words, "Not for you," along with what appears to be a red symbol, though honestly, I can't tell if that symbol is meant to be there or if it's just an artifact from the static. Finally, in this new window, we can see what vaguely resembles the usual beta Minecraft launcher, though there are several things off. Overall, the launcher looks very amateur, almost thrown together as if it wasn't intended to be released yet. On the right-hand side of the launcher, we can see that all of the official links have 404'd. Furthermore, reading the two small articles underneath the Minecraft news section, we learn that this is in fact a brand new launcher designed for the beta 1.503 update. Though even in the articles themselves, there are many errors we can read, like the sentence, "We will iron them out in days." Again, Nick is reminded that he is being watched by the final line in the first paragraph.
Remember, we are watching.
The most unusual part of this launcher, however, is the login option, or rather, the lack thereof. The only button Nick can press is play, and right beside that button is text reading, "No need to log in, we did it for you. TheNick56. Nick is again being directly mentioned through this launcher, and now it's much harder to dismiss this as an automated response. This seems personal. With only one button to press, Nick drags his mouse over to the play button and clicks. I'd argue that watching might be the most important upload we've seen so far, even beating Hours. While visually there wasn't much going on, especially in comparison to ours, we get a glimpse of major plot lines from both Nick and the developer of this mysterious Minecraft version. Again, I really believe that Nick referring to the Burgeon and Hours videos as a crash is a lot more than just a term of phrase. This wasn't the only piece of information we got, of course. There's a lot to be discussed about this upload. Early on in the video, Nick tells us he couldn't find anything about the error on the Minecraft forums. This seems to imply that Nick is one of very few, if not the only person to have received this error. Using context from previous videos, we know that it's likely other players have played this same weird version of Minecraft with corrupted blocks that Nick has. We saw the Hours players, and even got confirmation from Vil when he said it took the others but not you. This leads into my first real theory I'll be discussing so far. Clearly, there has to be two versions of Minecraft available online. One being the usual beta 1.5 that you'd expect, and the other, a warped and corrupted version of the game being distributed in an unknown way from an unknown developer to a very small player base. If the version of Minecraft we've been watching on Nick's channel was the official game, there obviously would have been something on the Minecraft forums that Nick would have seen. It doesn't even necessarily have to be the error Nick was looking for, just the mention of corrupted blocks, a new dimension, or some other discovery Nick had yet to find himself. The point is, no one is talking about this version of Minecraft, and that's exactly what this developer wants. This developer, or it, has been sending out corrupted copies of Minecraft to small groups of people in order to turn them into Hours players. What I lack in this theory, though, is how the developer is sending these versions out, and why. From the title of Nick's first video, it's pretty safe to assume that Beta 1.5 wasn't Nick's first version of Minecraft. This begs the question, how did Nick end up with this corrupted version of the game? If he's played for a while, he's likely had to update the game before, leaving out any possibility of Nick downloading this version from a shady site. Also, I'm not sure what the developer gains from corrupting worlds and players besides their own satisfaction, which is motive enough for some people. It is likely, though, that this corruption isn't the work of a sadistic human developer. It could very well be supernatural with the likes of Herobrine. We'll have to see more before we can speculate on the true identity and motives of it. My theory, though, still stands. We're watching an alternate development path of Minecraft, a path that no one but Nick and Vil have survived, and the development distortion only gets worse from here. The next video picks up right where we left off. Titled B1.5_03 jar 33%, the video begins with the Minecraft title screen, and right away, we can already see a departure from the official development path. In the bottom right of the screen, we can barely make out the words Copyright Mojang Specifications, a moniker Mojang hadn't used since version Alpha 1.2.6. It's definitely a small change, though these small changes will begin to add up. Inside the game, Nick spawns in a brand new world right next to what seems to be a bonus chest, a feature that wasn't added until release 1.3.1. Weird, but okay, let's see what's in it. A written book. Again, something that wasn't added until 1.3.1. We also see that the GUI for the chest is labeled Gift, and the book is titled Cave Game Tutorial, written by creator of Cave Game, name ? For anyone who isn't aware, Minecraft's original title was Cave Game, and the added question at the end of the author's name in the written book leads me to believe that either the corruption has gotten so bad that it can't remember who created the game, or it is deciding whether or not to include a real name here. Nick takes the book out of the chest, clearly confused in how it works, given that he left-clicks the book twice on the ground before finally opening it. This is a nice subtle hint that Nick has never seen this item before, as he shouldn't have, given that this is years away from being implemented into the game. Inside the book, we get to read an unfinished changelog, with more questions about the game's name, and another ominous message from the developer.
Please have fun, and do not deal with matters that do not concern you.
The second page of the book is nearly unreadable, even including symbols instead of words a few times. We can read the last sentence though. The book is signed off by the compiler of the current manifestation. Seems to me like another alias for it. Once Nick closes the book, we get a look at yet another set of features that simply shouldn't exist yet. Inside Nick's inventory, we see the inclusion of an offhand slot. a feature that wasn't added until release 1.9. The recipe book wasn't added until 1.12, and the most recent feature, the updated Steve skin, which was only implemented just a few months ago for version 1.19. All of these new features, combined with the clearly unfinished state of the update, gives Nick an uneasy feeling. This version of the game is very unrefined. I don't feel like it was intentional for the launcher to send me this version. I have issues that I'd never had in my old world. Stuttering, black screens, missing chunks, hell, even things breaking and moving when they aren't supposed to. Despite this feeling, Nick pushes on. He begins to chop down a nearby tree, giving us a clear view of the updated Steve skin with the cuffs on his sleeve. Before Nick can even break down the whole tree, the screen turns once again to static. This time, we can read the words, Vil_1 has left the manifestation. We could assume the manifestation is either the corrupted world, as that's the only place we've ever seen Vil, or we could interpret it as the game itself, the Minecraft world in general. Either way, Vil is no longer here. We can't tell if Vil leaving was intentional or forced. It's possible that Vil has the ability to move between worlds. We did see him flying in Hours, clearly showing that he has more power than Nick or the Hours players. Though it's just as likely that it found out about Vil's communications with Nick and forcibly removed Vil from the manifestation. What I do know is that this is the last time Vil will be mentioned in any of Nick's uploads to date, so maybe leaving the manifestation is permanent. Nick, now finished with this tree, begins to craft the usual starting items for a new world. What's unusual for Nick, however, is the notification from the recipe book when he's crafted a new item. In another subtle hint, Nick hovers his cursor over the notification, showing us again that this is entirely new for him. The notification gives us confirmation on more future items, as we can see glimpses of soul campfires and crossbows, which of course were not in beta Minecraft. This video is confusing. Something is clearly wrong with Minecraft's timeline as a whole. We witnessed so many features and items that are years away from 2011, some of which are even a full decade out from being implemented. I can't tell if this story is just an alternate development path, or involves actual time travel to some degree. What I'm sure about though is Nick is absolutely right about this version being hastily thrown together. From the unpolished launcher to the duplicated version number in-game, and even the changelog for the update itself, everything seems so rushed compared to just one version ago. I think after the events of Burgeon and Hours, it needed to throw together a new update as quickly as possible in order to try and capture Nick in the corrupted world once again. With Vil now out of the picture, it seems that Nick is now alone up against it. We're now down to the final 3 videos, 2 of which are seemingly directly connected to each other. The first of this pair is titled Generating, and honestly this video doesn't have much to it. It begins with a solid black screen, while ominous music plays in the background. The audio cuts abruptly, and the word generating fades into view. This word then flashes 9 times, and then the video returns to a silent, solid black screen for the remainder of the runtime. There isn't much to say about this upload. Of course, it's gotta mean something, but neither I nor anyone I talked to could draw much from it. While this video doesn't have a description, Nick left 2 more console commands in the comments. The first command was left entirely by Nick. It wasn't a reply to anyone. The command reads as follows: console.//user ? Error. The second was a recent reply to user Iolark. Iolark asked, "Nick, what happened to them? To the rest of them?" Nick replies, console.// gone, error, exception ? When I first saw Iolark's comment, I will say I was suspicious that someone would ask such a strange question on an almost entirely blank video. Searching through Iolark's profile, nothing came up. I am really thankful that Iolark left this comment though. This console command Nick replied with is one of few that actually answers a question. I think when Iolark asks about them, he's referring to the Hours players, or the other players who played this corrupted version of Minecraft. Responding with "gone" seems to confirm that those players have been entirely corrupted. That last remark, though, the exception question mark, makes me think it's referring to Nick. Hey, editing Atlas jumping in here for a second. I don't know how I missed this during scripting, but it seems to me now that Nick or it or whoever is responding to Ilark here, when they say "gone," "error," "exception," I now think that it's referring to the characters we know themselves. I think Vil reflects the "gone" part, it itself or the Hours players refers to the error, and the exception is, of course, Nick, which I go on to talk about here in just a second. As we know, Nick is the only person we've seen completely unfazed by the corruption, making him the exception to all other players. In terms of programming, which is the style of these console commands, an exception is something that disrupts the normal flow of the program's instructions, exactly what Nick has done to it and the corrupted world. We get a final look at this new version of Minecraft in the next upload, titled B1.5_03 jar 99%. In a sequel to the jar 33% video, we see Nick in the same world returning to his base at night. Very comparative to Burgeon's start. In fact, this video runs almost parallel to Burgeon, Nick's base even looking remarkably similar to that first base we saw at the beginning of his channel. Just as Nick makes his way inside, the video cuts to a completely new scene. Not static this time, but instead, a Minecraft screenshot. This screenshot is heavily distorted, but this marks the first time it has spoken directly to us, the audience. Text embedded on top of the screenshot reads,
"Stop watching. Nick has nothing to offer."
Before this moment, we could only speculate that it knew about Nick's escape from the corrupted world. Now, with the inclusion of the direct messages to Nick in the launcher, along with Vil's disappearance, this message confirms that it is very aware of not only Nick, but his channel as well. This is bad for it. I said earlier that it wants to keep this corrupted version of Minecraft as secretive as possible. That way, nothing can be done to stop its corruption from spreading. With Nick posting videos exposing the corruption, it risks losing everything it's worked for. So, in an attempt to cover its tracks, it tells us to stop watching, which we're obviously not going to do, sorry. One problem here is that if it has the ability to insert messages into Nick's video, why not just stop him from uploading this video at all? An answer could be that it only has power over Minecraft itself, so this message we're reading isn't really something edited into the video, rather its message appears as an in-game glitch that Nick happened to record and then upload. When the interruption clears and we're back in the game, we're met with RGB lines completely covering the screen, along with the audio being highly compressed. Nick continues playing normally, while a new short song plays in the background. While we watch Nick explore the surrounding area, we can see even more future features, like several sweetberry bushes scattered around the forest. This whole update again rubs Nick the wrong way. In the description he writes, "The more I play this version, the more I feel weird. I tried looking at the forums for this version, but it simply doesn't exist. What the fuck is this?" We now have total confirmation that there are in fact two separate versions of Minecraft in this world. This also confirms my theory that a very small amount of people have access to this version of Minecraft, giving more credence to the belief that it doesn't want too many people knowing this version exists. In the final frames of the video, we're met with something that's all too familiar. In a reflection of Burgeon and making progress, just at the top of a spruce tree, right next to Nick's base, we see those same solid black, white outline corrupted blocks creeping their way closer to Nick, like a disease, spreading and corrupting anything in its path. Another cycle, destined to send Nick from a new world into corrupted hell. This is the last time we'll see gameplay from Nick's channel for now. This leaves us with one final upload, and the sequel to Generating, titled Generated. Generated is nearly the same as Generating, featuring nothing but the word generated slowly fading in for most of the video's runtime. Accompanying this text is the sound of an old computer starting up and whirring to life, which is played for all 32 seconds of the video. This old terminal sound reminds me of the console commands Nick has scattered throughout his comments section, and surprise surprise, we're left with two final comments from Nick. Now, unlike his previous comments, Nick doesn't begin his response with the usual console command. Instead, he leaves a cryptic string of letters which can be deciphered using a 7-shift Caesar cipher, translating the text to reorder.use. Following this cipher, Nick leaves the command console.//logout. And with that, no further replies were left in this video's comments section. If we take a look at the video's description, we get yet another cipher, along with the first real clue left by Nick. The description reads, "Though it is not as it seems, the answer is correct. However, it is also incorrect. Perhaps a rearrangement?" This text is paired with a hexadecimal code, which, once translated, reads, "Cave game generate." Strange. There's one final piece of information that I've purposely not discussed yet, and it happens at the final seconds of the upload. Just after the word generated fades from the screen, we see a final code left by Nick, a mix of numbers, letters, dots, and slashes. This is the most important code Nick has left us so far, potentially holding the key to truly understanding the story Nick has shown us so far. This code, when solved, leads to Just as I was nearly done editing this, Nick, for the first time in 4 months, uploaded a new video. This new video, though only a minute long, answers some very important questions, even outright confirming some theories we discussed earlier. The title of this video is written in a hexadecimal code, and once translated, reads, Data Leak 01. Now, the actual contents of the video is very simple. We're reading a conversation between it and Vil. That's right, Vil makes a return in this video, proving me wrong earlier when I said that leaving the manifestation might be permanent. The following is the aforementioned conversation. It begins with it speaking to Vil.
Vilgus, how much longer can the manifestation be held open? It could collapse at any moment. We can't risk having him here. His connections to the outside are tenacious. He sits in a limbo between us and them. Create a new manifestation for the time being. Keep him distracted. Understood. I will need to figure out a more permanent solution to this blip.
Let's take a moment to break this down, line by line. In the first line, spoken by it, we learn that Vil's full name is Vilicus. Vilicus is a Latin word, translating to steward, essentially meaning a person who is responsible for looking after a place and the people in it. In this case, we can assume Vil to be the steward of the corrupted dimension, tasked with taking care of the dimension and the Hours players inside of it. This would explain why Vil was shown to be flying over the dimension in the Hours video, and it would make sense of the fact that Vil was immediately aware of Nick's presence while it wasn't. In this conversation, we're made aware that Vil wasn't just another player trapped inside the corrupted version of Minecraft. He is, in fact, connected to it, almost acting as a servant for it. This is strange though. Clearly, Vil isn't as dedicated to the corruption as it thinks he is. We saw in the Hours video that Vil is almost warning Nick, even seeming to be happy to see Nick get a second chance, as he described it. It seems to me that Vil is tired of watching people be taken over by the corruption and turned into the Hours players. Eventually, it's possible that we could see Vil revolt against it, and maybe even help Nick expose this corruption to the world. Finally, we learn that the manifestations, or the versions of Minecraft created by Vil, slowly begin to fall apart or collapse over time. This gives us an explanation on the corrupted blocks we saw in the Burgeon and Jar 99% videos. It seems that after a while of Nick playing this version of Minecraft, the corrupted dimension will begin to bleed through into Nick's world. In turn, this causes Vil to have to throw together a new version of the game in order to keep Nick out of the corrupted dimension. This makes sense of the rushed and incomplete versions of the game we saw in both Watching and the Jar videos. We know that Nick is unaffected by the corruption, unlike everyone before him, something that neither it nor Vil has experienced before. Because Nick is unaffected, Vil is having to work faster than ever on these new versions of the game, causing them to be full of errors and bugs. In the next line, Ville's response, we learn that the current version of Minecraft Nick is playing, the one seen in the Jar 99% video, has almost collapsed. We did see the corrupted blocks right at the end of the video, a seemingly telltale sign that Nick will soon be sent back to the corrupted dimension. It then states, we can't risk having him here. His connections to the outside are minacious. This line single-handedly confirms my theory that it does not want anyone to be aware of the corrupted versions of Minecraft. It seems like Nick is the first person to ever record footage of these corrupted versions, and that is threatening to it. Judging by its statement of, we can't risk having him here, it seems like it is trying to find a way to dispose of Nick without sending him to the corrupted dimension, as it doesn't want any more footage of the corruption online. Ville then writes, he sits in a limbo between us and them. This seems to somewhat reassure it, saying that while they don't have complete control over Nick, Nick hasn't caused any real detriment to the corruption yet. It then commands Ville to create a new version of Minecraft in order to keep Nick distracted until it can figure out a way to solve their issue. Ville does as instructed, and that leaves us with the final line of the video. A console command. console.//manifestation create. Cave game title equals beta 1.5_04. This console command hints at an upcoming video, one where we'll see Nick explore whatever broken mess Ville creates for version 1.504. We've reached the end of Nick's story so far, but I'd like to leave one last theory before ending off this video. Since the very first upload, we've seen Nick leave unreasonably cryptic messages to viewers in his comments section. These messages are always written in the style of console commands, the very same that we see Ville write at the end of this video. Now, I've questioned from the beginning if Nick was really the one uploading these videos to his channel, and I might have just found my answer. What if, this whole time, Ville has been the one uploading these videos? Considering Ville's messages to Nick in the Hours video, it's not hard to say that he isn't 100% dedicated to its corruption. Uploading these videos, exposing the internet to the corruption, it might just turn out that Ville is the whistleblower to the corruption that's taken so many others before Nick. With that, I'll bring this investigation to a close. For now, at least. In the future, once we see more from Nick, if you guys are interested, I'd love to follow up on this story and do a part 2. By the way, I really encourage you all to go over to Nick's channel and watch all of his videos. This is my first time creating a video like this, so there's probably stuff you guys can pick up from his videos that I never caught on to. Not to mention, there's a ton of unanswered questions, most notably the code at the end of Generated, which I purposely left out because no one online I've talked to has managed to solve it. There's a link to Nick's channel in the description, so please go over there and try to crack this story. If you do manage to find anything at all worth mentioning, I've created a channel in my Discord server specifically for discussions about the Nick56. Now, I'd like to take a second to thank my friends and the very helpful people online who tried to crack this case along with me. I'd also like to thank you for watching this video. It would mean the world to me if you left a like and subscribe to the channel. This has been Digital Distress, and I'll see you next time for another unnerving dive into the internet's depths. But, yeah, that's it.